Hey everyone, my name is Oliver Medina, and I will be addressing the topic of informed consent for this class assignment. I'm going to briefly talk about the state of Florida and their regulations, and then the contrast between the informed consent form that I downloaded in comparison to the requirements of the ACA Code of Ethics. But please note that I'm only going to discuss the differences due to the time constraints of this class or this project. As you may already know, informed consent is required in all 50 states in the mental health profession. According to the APA, it was created for the sole purpose of protecting clients and research participants, and it recognizes that clients have the right to autonomy, dignified treatment, and freedom of choice. But informed consent looks very different depending on which state you look at. However, the requirements remain consistent so far based on my research and in most cases across the country. The state of Florida, which is where I will most likely be practicing, does not have state legislation that directly sets the guidelines for the mental health field. However, it does have a informed consent statute that is directly directed towards the medical field, which is statute 766.103. And like I said, that's straight for the medical field. The responsibility of setting the regulations and rules in the state of Florida was left to the Florida Department of Health and the Florida Administrative Code and Florida Administrative Register's Office, which adheres to the requirements of both the ACA and the APA regarding informed consent. For the purpose of this discussion, I wanted to contrast the consent forms between pastoral counseling and that of the APA requirements. Pastoral counselors do follow guidelines according to the American Association of Pastoral Counselor Code of Ethics, or what they know as the AAPC. I downloaded a consent form from the Crossing Church in Columbus, Missouri, which offers pastoral counseling. In almost every aspect of the consent form from that church, it was very similar to the requirements of the ACA. The major differences between this consent form compared to the ACA requirements is that it parts from the ACA in section 8.4.b regarding the personal views of the counselor, or in this case, the church. They have a section titled Description of Pastoral Counseling that says this: the goal of pastoral counseling is to help an individual think biblically about their current struggle in the context of a confidential and caring environment. A pastoral counselor relies on scriptures as the sole authority for faith and conduct and recognizes that lasting change is the result of the power of God, the grace of Christ, and the indwelling ministry of the Holy Spirit, which I completely agree with. Guided by biblical principles, the counselor's role is to utilize guided questioning, empathetic support, problem definition, reflection, reading assignments, encouragement, and prayer to provide wise, biblical, and faithful counsel to those who are hurting and in need. So you can see the difference here on how it parts from the ACA. According to 8.4.b, we as counselors in the professional setting cannot impose our values on others. In other words, it would be unethical and a violation to refer to the Bible in any way, shape, or form. Professional counselors are supposed to rely on traditional schools of thought with empirical support, whereas pastoral counselors and Christian counselors are not subject to section 8.4.b, and that this section, there is absolutely no reference in the AAPC, and they can freely refer to biblical teachings and their own expressions when counseling others. And finally, I was happy to see this part inserted in the consent form because a lot of pastors and faith-based counselors fail to draw the line between biblical and spiritual counseling and recognizing clinical mental health issues, which should be referred out to a professional. In their consent form, they inserted this part, and it's called Referral Policy Disclaimer. After reviewing the intake form, we will determine whether or not we feel that we can provide you with the appropriate services and level of care needed. Clients will be referred outside the crossing pastoral counseling center when treatment required is beyond the scope of care available here. And that's important because sometimes pastors do fail to see the difference between spiritual counseling and professional counseling, and there are issues that are not of the spiritual nature, per se, schizophrenia or bipolarism or those types of issues. So I was just really glad to see that in there. And then finally, in the comparison, there is no section on the continuation of services upon the incapacitation or death of the counselor, in this case, the pastor. So there's no contingent plan there in case something happens to the counselor. And that would be, for me, the comparison, or at least what I found, between these two organizations and this particular consent form. If you guys have any critiques or any comments, go ahead and send me a video. I look forward to hearing them. I've enjoyed watching everybody else's videos. It's been pretty good. I think I'm a little bit over my time, but hey guys, I pray you guys are doing well this semester, and thanks for watching. And again, looking forward to just keep working with you guys. Bye.